when I met Lucie, it was like yesterday.
Yeah,
we met before the sail away party, and I think, tell me that I'm the only person that's like said this to you. I immediately said, "Oh, I loved it when you played Elizabeth Short in the Black Dahlia in the TV movie years ago." You know, yes.
Talk about film noir.
Yes. So
I have a film noir history. That's kind of nice.
So here's my story. I'm good friends with James Ellroy, and you know they made another version of the Black Dahlia a few years ago with Brian De Palma, and Ellroy was kind enough to invite me to the premiere of the film, and the film is awful. It's terrible. And so he says to me afterwards, "What do you think?" And I said, "I like Lucie Arnaz's one better."
It's true though, not just because of me. I thought our film was done very well.
It was terrific.
Very seriously done too, right? Ephraim Zimbalist
Ephraim
Jr.,
Zimbalist
Ronnie
Jr.
Cox.
Harry Hansen, the
So
detective who
many,
investigated.
all based on absolute real facts, which we researched like crazy, and had gruesome pictures of the actual thing from Harry because he actually still had the Polaroids or whatever the stuff he took. Oof. Yeah.
Well, look for that one. We're not here to talk about
what
the Black
do they call it
Dahlia
actually when you see it in television guides? It says, "Who killed the Black Dahlia?" I think that's what it's actually called. Who killed the Black Dahlia? Yeah.
There are over 60 suspects.
ABC television movie of the week.
I
When there used to be television movies of the week. Doug Kramer produced it.
Maybe next time we'll show that.
You should. You ever do like movies that aren't feature films?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because especially now.
Or TV movies. I mean, they showed Brian's Song at the TCM Festival last year. That was a great TV movie. So. Okay, but let's talk about your mom, and let's talk about this film. Now, you were telling me backstage, it's kind of interesting, that your mom was not one of these people, these stars, who would force you to watch her work.
Yeah, never. I never saw this film. I mean, the only time I saw portions of it was when people were picking clips to put into the Lucie Desi, a home movie documentary that my husband Larry and I made in 1993. And we had to do portions of her, her film work, as well as my father's biography. And so I saw bits and bobs of it, but I didn't have time to look at all these movies all the way through. But I watched it before coming on the cruise, just to sort of remember. I thought, oh my God, this is so... First of all, I don't know a whole lot about film noir, but if that's what film noir is, that's a good example of it, I would imagine, right? And it was almost, like you said, almost a send-up of it, but not really.
There are aspects of the film that you can tell they're already making fun of the cliches in the genre. There's a moment, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, I won't spoil it, where Mark Stevens does the two-fisted drinking private eye gag that is just classic. It's like something out of Mad Magazine or something. and it's like, it's perfect. And the audience, you will all guffaw hysterically when it does this. And it's just a little tiny moment inside, but it's fantastic.
But true to the way I think my mother always performed best was just totally believable. I mean, even on I Love Lucy or yesterday with the Long, Long Trailer, no matter how crazy or outlandish the circumstance, she played it for real, not to be funny. She actually just played what was happening at the moment. And in this film, she's not trying to be funny ever. And she plays the whole thing very, very straight. And I loved it because she plays somebody who's obviously smitten by her boss. And he's kind of putting the make on her too. And she's helping him with his work. She's really smitten, but she's a good girl and she doesn't know, I'm not going there. And she did it really well without it being corny, really sexy and still like a nice girl in an interesting way.
She is. She's like a guy who likes these movies like me. She's like the dream girl. Oh my God! If you could actually meet a woman.
Now, why is that? Explain that. All the women out here want to know what that means, right? Don't we?
Okay. And this morning, when I did my boxing presentation, there was a guy who asked a question about, what is it about the women in film noir? And I think a lot of people misinterpret what makes the women in these movies so special, because they think we're just talking about the bad girls, that we're talking about Ava Gardner and the Killers and Rita Hayworth and Lady from Shanghai and all this stuff. But we're really talking about a different type of American woman that was seen for the first time in these movies. And it's sort of an outgrowth of that 30s screwball comedy dame who could drink and talk fast with the guys and they could hold their own, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then in the 40s it got a little darker and the stories got a little bit darker. But these women were completely self-reliant. They could take care of themselves. Like in this picture,
Yeah.
she's living on her own. She's a working girl trying to just make a buck. She is clearly smitten by this detective that she's working for. And she just can take care of herself.
She's also the opposite of a Lucy Ricardo kind of character that she ended up playing many years later, because she's actually very good at what she does. She's efficient.
Yes.
She can type.
Yes. And
She doesn't drop the papers all over the floor.
There's no crying scene at the end.
She doesn't do that. Imagine, this film was made in, you said 1946?
1946.
1946. So this was many years. Well, not all that many, but
No.
a few years before I was born. So, but like you said, my mother did not. We actually had a screening room in our living room once we moved to Beverly Hills after I was 4 years old. And Mom and Dad, when they had a chance, would get films from the studios. You could actually rent a film from one of the studios, sometimes before they even were released. And you'd hire a projectionist. We had two big 35 millimeter cameras in our little projection room and little shutters behind the couch. And then this big screen would come down from, a really large screen, like maybe 25 feet by 10 feet high. And it would just come out of the ceiling, and the projectionist would show up, "Hi, Roy." Hi. And then he would put the films on. I'd have to break, when they have to, stop and put the other reel change and everything. And we saw a lot of wonderful Disney movies. I saw all the great Disney films when I was a kid. Parent Trap and all those things, and but she never brought one of these films home. No, she wasn't about to brag about work she used to do, even when we showed home movies, they were never movies before we were born. They were always movies of Little Desi and Little Lucy running naked through the sprinklers, And it wasn't until after they passed away and I got the collection of all those home movies that I saw how much other stuff was there, which is why we made the documentary.
Wow.
Yeah, but no, she never bragged about all this work.
Well, I have to say, it's doubtful that this would have been one of the films that she would have shown.
Yeah.
Because although she's fantastic in it, I did read an interview where she said this was the worst professional experience of her life.
Yeah.
Because there's no kind way of putting this. She hated Henry Hathaway, the director, so much, and he hated her so much that the fact that she is so radiant and fabulous in this movie against all odds and really sucking it up in this film.
Yeah.
Because Henry Hathaway was not a woman's director. And he very, very rudely told Daryl Zanuck when Lucy was cast in this film, he said, "Why are you saddling me with this no-talent actress?"
Oh.
And,
No wonder she was so good in it.
well, I think we know who got the last laugh.
All you have to do is get wind of that, right? And go, "Watch me."
Yeah. And it's sort of hard to believe that he would have this attitude when you watch her in the film. Because I hate to tell you this, Henry, but she steals the movie. I mean, this is her picture all the way.
Well, it's funny, and I'm trying to figure out why somebody would say that. But if you think about it, back then she was what they called a B-picture actress. She wasn't really starring in any A movies. She had leads in B movies, and she was co-starring with the Bob Hopes and the Red Skeltons and stuff. But they weren't big, huge films. So he probably wanted an A-list actress, and later on, when she had I Love Lucy and everything, she still wasn't an A-list actress. They probably still would have said the same thing. It's the same way today. It is.
But it just goes to show you. I mean, it is remarkable. And a couple other little things about this film. Mark Stevens, who's the star of the movie, I mean, he's an interesting story too, because he was in a way kind of a B-list actor, because so many of Fox's A-list actors had gone off to the armed services, and Mark Stevens was disqualified from military service, and so he became like William Ith, who was another actor at Fox at the time, who became like the substitute Tyrone Power. Mark Stevens was essentially the substitute Dana Andrews. So normally Dana Andrews would have played this part, right? And clearly The Dark Corner was Fox's attempt to capitalize on the success of Laura, which was made a couple of years earlier. And Clifton Webb is in both films, obviously.
Right.
It's the same screenwriter, Jay Draitler, who wrote the screenplay for Laura, is also the screenwriter of this film. And there's something about the whole milieu, if you will, of the uptown New York art scene in this movie is very, very similar to what Clifton Webb was doing as Waldo Lydecker in Laura. So it was sort of, let's make a hard-boiled detective version of Laura.
Yeah.
It's just what they were doing. And with the ace up the sleeve is Lucille Ball. Because there's nothing like Lucille Ball in Laura, nothing. And she is what really powers this whole movie. That's where we're at with this film. So look at this crowd. This is fantastic.
Are they going to ask questions?
I don't know. I think we need to start the show at some point. But I want to ask you. So
okay.
What else are you doing on the cruise that we have to?
Oh, thanks for asking. Do you know what else I'm doing on the cruise?
No.
Oh, some of them do, some of them do. Okay. Wednesday and Thursday night, I'm doing a whole concert, cabaret, nightclub act for you. How is it that you guys don't know this? We all got our little booklets. There's nothing else to do but read them. You sit on the deck and you read your booklet. It's an intimate evening with Lucie Arnaz is what it's called. And my wonderful musical director, Ron Abel, and I will be bringing you a show in the Tube. You know that wonderful English room, which is kind of funky and wonderful. Wednesday evening, it's the late show for those of you who want to come to see. It starts at 9:45. And then Thursday, it's a 6:30 show, I guess, before the early seating and the late seating. And it's I guess it runs about 85 minutes, and it's just me and this wonderful music maker singing great American standards and telling stories about how I got here.
Wow.
Yay, so come, please. And I encourage you, if you do come, I've asked them, because you know that room has a dance floor, and all the seats are like that, and that's no good for an intimate evening with Lucie Arnaz. I don't want to be on stage and have a big dance floor in front of me instead of people. So we're putting chairs, and don't anybody say, oh, I don't want to sit up front. I need you up front. People sit in those chairs, okay, before you start sitting in all those other ones. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, I will be there.
Okay, great.
Okay. And just before we run the show, now I'm going to make my pitch. The thing that I have forgotten to mention throughout my introductions is TCM was kind enough to screen a film that I made a few years ago with the great Marcia Hunt. If you know Marcia Hunt from Pride and Prejudice and Raw Deal, one of the great noir films.
Isn't she in Our Town as well? Didn't she play the young girl in Our Town? No?
Perhaps.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think so.
No?
Anyway, I am doing this. It's a short story that I wrote, and Marcia was kind enough to agree to act in it when she was 90 years old. Marcia, I'm happy to say, is still going strong. She just had her birthday on October 17th. And TCM amazingly took a leap and said, well, we're going to show your film at the D Lounge on Thursday, I think, at 4 o'clock or something. It's only 20 minutes long. It's a short. Believe me, you wouldn't want it to go 21 minutes. When it gets to the 20 minutes, you'll be like, oh my God, what did we just get into? So that's, this woman is so charming. I'm sorry that I just met her. So enjoy The Dark Corner. It's a fantastic film. I'm so glad that you came out here. And if you're old movie fans, you know any movie that has not only Lucille Ball, but Clifton Webb and William Bendix in it together, that's about as good as it's going to get where character actors come in. So,
okay, and I have one last thing to lay in their heads when they watch this, and I don't know if it's true, but the only person my father was ever jealous of with my mother, and trust me, it worked the other way plenty times, was Mark Stevens. And I always wondered why that was. And then I saw this film and I realized that when she made this movie in 1946, my father was on the road all the time with the band. And all these beautiful dames singing songs and whatnot and everything. And she's doing pictures with Red Skelton and Bob Hope and blah, blah, blah. And then she gets cast in this with Mark Stevens. And they have a lot of really nice love scenes.
There's some fabulous
I've been in
noir
films with
love.
guys with love scenes. And they kiss you nice. And it's nice. And he's away. And I don't think she did anything wrong, but I think Dad had a right to be jealous. That's all I
We got
gotta
a prize for this? Okay. Enjoy The Dark Corner.
really want to watch it. What time is the next one? I was 3:40.